because we have tended to focus too much on food security, and we have, for that reason, we have also, because of that, we have tended also to focus on maize, to address the food security situation. So there's too much maize. I think maybe now the statistics are showing about 70% of the cropping system is committed to maize in most of the districts, which I think, as you see, is quite a problem, because it's not moving us to the next step, which is trying to commercialize, looking at agribusiness, producing for the market, so that the farmers' households have more income, and then therefore also the mindset is changing. They are now diversifying into high-value crops. I think it's the focus, the priority, how we prioritize these food systems. Okay, what sort of value chains are we focusing on, and how are we linking to the markets? Okay, what sort of systems, extension systems, do we have? Because we seem to be using the same extension systems, which are not really engaging much the beneficiaries, so that it's more the beneficiaries that are really coming forward to tell us what are the issues, and also they can also help us to address the other aspect of how best we can move forward in order to improve the agriculture system. So I think for me, we are still weak in terms of our extension system. I think it's still backwards. It's not really engaging too much the beneficiaries. So I see also that element is very critical in terms of knowledge transfer. I think, to be honest with you, for me, I go out in the field to visit. I go to the EPAs, I go to the villages. Right now, I'm involved in a study on land restoration, and we're targeting some of these degraded areas. And we're talking to villagers, we're talking to farmers, asking them, who is supporting you? It's very disappointing in some of these areas that, there are no organizations that are working there. So I think there's a disconnect, between the amount of money that you are getting and what is actually happening on the ground. I wouldn't say exactly where that money is going. I wouldn't say that because I don't have evidence or information. But I think a lot of it is happening at the top here. We are really not on the ground to support these farmers and households, villagers. So there's a disconnect. I think we need to really to assess exactly how best we can translate all these resources that we're getting into some real action on the ground. I think previously we have tended to focus on men and women, and not so, maybe we were assuming that youth will automatically participate. But over the last 4 years, we've seen that it's very critical to involve the youth. As you know, they are in the majority right now, the youth. We have more youth. I think it's maybe over 60%. So we see that the youth are the future for agriculture in this country. And as TOC, we have deliberate, efforts. We've put in deliberate efforts to engage the youth, not just participating in programs, but really taking up leadership roles in these groups, the associations and all that, but also having special programs for the youth. For example, we are doing this CA mechanization, where we are using the two-wheel tractors as an example. That one, we have deliberately targeted the youth as an entrepreneur to manage to own those equipments, but also to provide a tillage service to the neighboring farmers. So we see that I think it's very important now that we should engage the youth, and perhaps this could also solve our problem, because we are not really jumping to the next step to transform our agriculture sector. So I think the youth is very critical for all the programs that we are doing. Right? Yeah, I think it's the level of technology that also we have to look at, which will really attract the youth. If we are using these archaic technologies, labor-intensive technologies, and all that, not really, maybe for subsistence, things like that, then the youth will not be attracted. I think we have to look at the type of technology, that is less labor demanding, technologies that can produce more for the youth. It's exciting. Things like greenhouse, production through greenhouse, mechanization, all those things will for sure attract the youth. So I wouldn't say that the youth are not interested. No, I think that is a wrong thinking. I think the youth are keen, but it's the way we have engaged them. Exactly the same problem I've highlighted earlier on to do with the sort of extension system we have. I think it's not also favoring engagement of the youth. So we need to really revisit our approach to ensure that the youth are part of the development process in the agriculture sector. Yeah, that's an interesting question. Yeah, I think we need to look at the way we have done things in the past, okay, or currently the way we are doing things. I think we know it's not working, and perhaps that's where the biggest problem is for me, is that we tend to maintain the status quo because we are worried that if things are changing, then even our positions will be at risk. Okay, so most people, when things are changing, they are scared of change. So I think the first thing we have to do is to look at what we are doing, the way we are doing things, and then look at how best we can do these things differently. And as I've mentioned, one of the things we need to revisit is the way we are engaging farmers. The way we are engaging farmers. I think it needs to be really transformative. Looking at first changing the knowledge, what we call CAP, knowledge, attitude, practice. We need to assess those. What is the gap in terms of the knowledge of these people? What is their attitude? What is the level of, how are they, what is the level of practice? And see what are the gaps. And then based on that, we can now mount, this strategic extension campaign to address those gaps. Because now we are only focusing on the practice and perhaps to some extent on the knowledge, but the attitude remains a big problem because people are not changing their mindset. As I, alluded to a few weeks ago, I was talking to some people. You see, if you look at some of the farmers, the soil fertility has been declining, the environment is getting degraded, but we are still using the same practices. Our thinking is the same. It's the same. We are not changing according to the changing, context. So the situation is changing, but the way we are doing things is the same. So this is, to me, is people at the top. They need to start thinking like that. Why are we not changing, but the situation is changing? Why are we not adapting to this changing context? Yeah, I think the first thing is that agriculture perhaps is the most attractive in terms of self-employment. Okay, so it's quite attractive, and I think it's also quite exciting that one, you are producing for the market, okay, and you are making money. But also it's that you are contributing to the overall development of this country because it's an agro-based, economy. And I think for that reason, we need the youth need to be excited to be part of that. I think most of these countries that have developed in Europe, in wherever, it's agriculture that really drove that to them to get to the position where they are today. So I think the youth are very critical now that they should be in the forefront, to engage into agribusiness.